So my name is Jamie Coleman. I played volleyball from 2013 to 2017 or 2016 at ASU. And I currently am the Chief Operating Officer at Seventh Ave. So sports for me, I think, was a default no option. Like, you kind of just get thrown into it, the world, and you're in it. But it taught me a lot of things around teamwork and commitment and discipline. And I think a lot of it is delayed gratification as well, which is a big part of my story, I will say. It teaches you how to stay committed even though when things are really rough. And I think the pressures you get and the highs you feel when things are great, but the pressure and the lows you feel when things are just going really bad. I tore my leg at one point in my career. I got rejected from a team I had been playing on for years at one point. But I, overcame all of that stuff. And then teamwork is something you can't get away from in the real world, I would say, which was a major part of, sports. It's a team sport. So, a couple of different life lessons have come from sports. It was a very strategic play of how I got into Google. I saw The Internship, the movie, which is with Vince Vaughn and Owen Wilson, and that was what first put Google on my radar. I had no idea what it was, no idea what I would be doing, but the perks in the movie, the entire thing just sold me. So I applied for their Bold Immersion program, got into that, went out to Google's headquarters for 10 days, and they were just running us for ideas. I did 3 interviews for the internship. And then from the rest is history. I did not know what I would be doing at Google. I was just let me just get in the door, and from there I can figure it out. Yeah, and then I spent 4 years there. I was in the Ann Arbor office for about a year and a half, and then I transferred to Atlanta where I did my remaining 3 years before I left to go do my own business. It has morphed into what we initially wanted it to be. We built it in the time of the pandemic. We wanted to be the Black Clubhouse, so just purely a social audio space, but for people of color, because when the pandemic happened, we had no safe spaces digitally. And so that's why we, started it. We raised just under $4 million to start this project, which was phenomenal. All Black investors outside of Twitter. So we were very, very proud of what we were doing. But we quickly realized that was just something that people really did not want, like they said they wanted it. And so we completely pivoted to something which now functions towards the creator economy. And that's just anybody that creates, TikTok, newsletters, podcasts, things like this. You guys are all considered creators. And so what we have provided is an end-to-end solution for creators that will allow them to consolidate their digital identity, deepen their relationships with their, current followers, and then sell directly to them. And so that will allow us to sit kind of between this Web2 transition that's happening into Web3, and we think we can really go deep into those spaces and help more people of color get into Web3. Oh, I love this question. Okay, what is Web3? Okay, this is a great education lesson. So we can't explain Web3 without talking about Web 1, right? And where this all started. So Web 1, which surfaced, was kind of like a research project, government funded. And it was pretty much one-dimensional, where you couldn't read anything unless you were a coder. It really wasn't something that people could actually, engage in. It was very hard to understand. Emerges Web 2. Web 2 is something where you get your social medias, where you can actually have some type of upload of content, people can contribute, etc. So you have your social platforms like your Twitters, your Googles, all of those different platforms there. So that was a way in which you can consolidate and actually engage. Where Web 3 tries to fix the sins of Web 1 and Web 2 was because it started off as a information or a research project. There was a lot of things that you were not able to do, like digital advertising, where Web 2 tried to fix that. Web 3 comes in and says, hey, we're all about ownership. We're all about the actual creators. But there's a couple central things that we really want to fix, which is transparency. So transparency, ownership, and community are going to be some of the bigger things you see. I don't believe it's going to be like a Ready Player One when people were like, oh, there's AI and VR, which are things that are happening. But Web3 is really much more of a mindset shift than anything. And we see a lot of athletes getting into the Web3 space, and they're looking to own their highlights or figure out how they can better engage with their fans. Because what this does is it allows a fan to actually get mutual value exchange, as opposed to, I'm just going to all of Steph Curry's games and I'm making Steph Curry rich, but he does absolutely nothing for me. And so that's why it's going to be very important for athletes to start owning their own brands and figuring out how they want to show up and how they want to participate with fans, especially with the rollout of NIL. There's so much happening right now where athletes can really get in. There's actually an NFT project called Top Shots, and they help athletes own and kind of monetize their highlights and get people involved in the community element of that. Oh, culture therapy is another one of my babies. I have a couple different things going on. But culture therapy really exists to kill cultural taboos. I feel like there's a lot of things, especially when you talk about mental health. We don't talk about things in the Black community. It was, you grow up in that whole what happens in this house stays in this house. but that really just perpetuates generational trauma. And so I really created culture therapy as a way to create a vulnerable safe space for people of color, or really just anyone that comes across it, to say, hey, this is my story, this is my truth. And because of that, I'm able to heal and kill these curses and create new cycles of wealth. And that could be mental wealth, financial wealth, freedom, whatever that may be. Yeah, that was more or less, again, my goes into my point of killing Black ignorance and providing voices for people who may not have the language to say how they feel, or may not have the spaces to articulate what they feel. It's an outlet for them to read this and hear like, hey, you're not alone, but then also be able to hopefully find the courage and the space to speak up on the things that they need. Traveling for me has always been an exciting part of my life. I played club ball, and so it was always really exciting when you got to go to the different states and play at the different tournaments. And when I was in elementary school, I was always in the multicultural classrooms. So that means like when you have your foreign exchange students or your people that come from different countries, they always got placed in my classroom. So when I was in first and second grade, my best friends were Chinese. And then you move into like third and fourth grade, you kind of keep going ahead. My best friends were Indian, Chinese, Korean. I was very fascinated with just the Asian culture overall. Then I got to college and I knew I wanted to travel abroad. And so my first actual international trip outside of Canada, because I'm from Detroit, so that's over the bridge. But my first international trip was to Barcelona, where I studied abroad. And I was there for 2 months, and I came back and had to do spring volleyball. But since then, I've been to about 22 countries. A lot of what we think is important in the States is not, a thought to cross anybody's mind overseas. So things like that, you just begin to see that what you think is really do or die is really not that important. And so I love it because it keeps me humble. I've always enjoyed proving people wrong. And that might be a bad thing, I don't know. But I've always enjoyed showing people that like the impossible is possible. Because literally for me being at Google, it was, if you go to HBCU, you won't get into big tech. It was like, okay, watch me. And the same way it was with volleyball, like all the different internships I was doing, or me studying abroad and missing a couple weeks of camp and things like that. They were like, it's going to affect your play. And I had an agreement with my coach where as long as I showed up and I balled out and I did what I was supposed to do, like, let me go do what I need to do. Because for me, I always understood volleyball was a means to an end. And I would be damned if I did all this work and then was butt out come graduation, like, dang, what am I going to do? Which is what I saw so many of my teammates and friends and other people that I know, it just happens, right? Like they make you prioritize the sport. Like I live my best life now and it was well worth it. And so it's a matter of priorities and balance and really just reaching out to these companies and being very proactive. I mean, I told you guys I wanted Google since my freshman year. Those would be my biggest things, is learn how to advocate for yourself against all odds, because they do not care about you the way that you think they do. So please advocate for yourself. Be very proactive and realize what priorities you have. Like you have the time, your priorities are a little bit all over. To be very honest, my appreciation or understanding of mental health was, I wouldn't say it was non-existent, but it really wasn't built. I was doing little things that I have now gone and incorporated into like my wellness practice, like journaling. I've been journaling since I was 10. So I have, probably about like 20 different journals at this point. So that was something that kept me going. And it was a way of which I kept my head intact without knowing it was a wellness practice. As crazy as it was, volleyball was my wellness outlet. Like it was very intense, but the hard work, the soreness, the pressure, the mental thinking of all of it, it really was an escape from the outside world, because you have so much stuff going on from personal, school. Like you have the pressures where for me, like when I step on the court, my mind goes blank and it's just that. And you can go as hard as you need to, hit the floor as hard you need to, be as aggressive as you need to, and you let all of it out. Now I'm a huge advocate of therapy. Please go get help. If you think you're okay, you're probably not. So please go get help. And I spend a lot of time by myself, and I make no apologies for that. It's just because I'm a very social person. I'm always traveling and doing a lot of things for work. And so the time in which I can take to be by myself, and typically I like to be in nature because it's a natural balancer, I do that. And I was, making the joke earlier, but I like, having my shoes off because it keeps me grounded and I feel connected to everything. And so that's the way in which I practice some of those things in a very light manner. I recently picked up pottery, which is also a release. Reading's a release. A lot things that allow you to kind of just escape the reality for what it is, just for that moment. And see kind of outside of yourself are things I always encourage. But that's something that I picked up from an intentionality standpoint post-graduation. But yeah, while I was in school, it was very much just reading and volleyball, or reading, writing, and volleyball that allowed me to stay sane. Top 3 book suggestions. So the top one that I always love and I highly recommend is Malcolm X Autobiography. I think that is that book is the epitome of change. And so if you want to actually understand a very militant man, a very strong opinionated man, but is able to say, hey, based off these experiences, I can now say I'm changing my perspective. I absolutely love that. Shoe Dog by Phil Knight. For anyone that's in business and want to build $1 billion corporation, I think being able to see something from conception and understand all the different nuances that go into it. The Midnight Library. I love that book more or less because I think it talks about, or it plays on the idea of regret and how, oftentimes we feel like we could have done something differently, or how would our life have turned out had we just said yes or just said no or did these one particular things, not realizing we have always been on the path of which, we're supposed to be on either way. But I think that book touches on a lot of different things around regret and living and things of that nature. So those would be my 3 book recommendations. So, have I found my purpose? I'm gonna be very honest. I probably have a different perspective on purpose finding. I don't believe I've found my purpose just yet. And I'm not necessarily looking for it at the moment, to be very transparent. I think once you found purpose, you no longer serve, your purpose here, and it's time to go home. And so while I'm here, I'm walking in purpose, but I haven't necessarily found the entire purpose of why I exist just yet. I think it's a journey. I can tell you the things that I enjoy doing and why I think, I've been gifted with different skill sets. But for me to say I am in purpose or I know why I'm here, I think would be, it would be a misleading statement on my behalf. So no, I don't know what my purpose is. I know what I enjoy doing. I try to use the platforms that I have, but no, I think when I find purpose, it'll be my time to leave Earth. And so maybe ask me in like 30, 40 years. But no, I don't know. Hi everyone, my name is Jamie Coleman, former Bama State Volleyball player where I was 2016 team captain, player of the year for libero position, and I was a 3-time SWAC winning all-champion in first conference. Currently, I am the Chief Operating Officer at Seventh Ave, and this is my purpose to be heard.